Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show on News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO. Joining us right now, GOP political strategist Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Chad. I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing wonderful. Appreciate you taking some time today to come on the show. I want to start off with your article in the Austin American-Statesman having to deal with sanctuary cities. And, you know, in this part of the world, in this part of Texas, you probably don't have to sell anybody on sanctuary cities, or at least not that many people. But in other parts of the state, you do. And here's my question for you on sanctuary cities. The governor's all for it, obviously. The lieutenant governor's all for it. Where's the House? Where's Joe Straus on this? Is there a does he think that this is a priority? Does he think this is a need right now for the state?
That's a good question. Look, I am fully expecting the House to pass a sanctuary cities bill. I don't expect them to pass the Senate bill. I expect them to pass their own, and that they will, go to conference and see what can be agreed to by both houses at that point. Keep in mind, the Senate and the House are structured differently. The Senate is in a position to name committees much earlier because they have a smaller number of members, 31 versus 150. Lieutenant governor, is in a position to make clear what his priorities are a lot earlier than the speaker is, and he did so with 25 priorities he unveiled early on. And so they did move the sanctuary cities bill very quickly, and it's pretty clear the governor and lieutenant governor are really have locked arms on this. And so, look, my expectation here, Chad, is if for some reason the House doesn't pass sanctuary cities, that the governor would call a special session. That's how committed he is on this issue. That's just my opinion. But I think this is highly likely to happen. I think the House bill will probably be a little bit weaker than the Senate bill. But keep in mind, once it goes to conference, there's only one version that comes out, and then it's an up or down vote. So the conference committee is what's going to really matter in terms of the ultimate bill.
Let's move on to another piece of legislature news, and that would be SB 6, the bathroom bill. The governor last week, governor really hasn't spoken a lot about the bathroom bill until the NFL and the NBA came out and started saying, hey, we're paying attention. We might move things out of the state of Texas if you guys don't squash this whole bathroom bill situation. And then the governor came out and to me, it wasn't a full-throated endorsement of the bathroom bill, but it was a full-throated endorsement of you guys outside of the state can't tell us what we can do. How did you read this, and how are you reading the bathroom bill politics between the governor, lieutenant governor, and also the House Speaker?
Yeah, that's another really good and interesting question, and I think the details here, matter, and the context matters. Look, the bathroom bill, the Texas Privacy Act, which was filed by a female conservative state senator named Lois Kolkhorst from Brenham, I think is very popular among Republican primary voters. But I also think it's true that the governor and probably the lieutenant governor and certainly the speaker don't want to see the kind of boycotts and economic threats that the state of North Carolina has been dealing with. They just lost, obviously, the NBA All-Star game, which was played in New Orleans last night. It was supposed to have been played in Charlotte. Now, the Texas bill is much, much more narrow than the North Carolina bill. And in fact, these celebrities that signed a letter last week urging the bill not be passed and perhaps even threatening boycotts in the future clearly hadn't read the bill, because stadiums are almost exclusively not included into this. I think I forget the exact language on it, but most stadiums, almost every stadium that any singer would go to, would be excluded from this. And so I think that's probably where this is headed. I think the Senate probably will pass SB 6. It's not clear to me that the bill will get a vote in the House. I think the end game could be to just do schools only. And I think that's where the lieutenant governor is actually on fairly high ground. I don't think anyone believes boys and girls showering together in schools is a good idea for safety or for any other reason. So I think that's probably what the end game is, Chad. But look, the speaker and the lieutenant governor are pretty far apart on this. Lieutenant governor is adamant about this bill. The speaker it's pretty clear he's not only not in favor of it, but really doesn't even think it should be a priority. And so I don't think the bathroom bill as it's written can pass the House. Maybe a more tailored, narrow bill that impacts schools only could potentially. We'll have to see. It's going to be something that is going to really take effect politically in April and early May, I think, at the end of the session.
Yeah, we're visiting with Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show. Matt, let's take a look at the presidency. President Trump, over the weekend, he held a rally in Florida, and he was also sort of attacked by John McCain. John McCain still not on board with Donald Trump. If you're the president, and no matter who became president on the Republican side, they were going to face opposition from Democrats. Not only is Trump dealing with that, but he's also got John McCain and a handful of other Republicans that, to me, are going around his back and beating him up a little bit, whether it's warranted or not. How does that impact Trump's presidency and him trying to lead going forward?
Yeah, it's an interesting, area to go into, because it's pretty clear that, that I think in a lot of areas, Trump and the Republicans have a lot of agreement on the big issues, on tax reform. I think they're driving towards an agreement on Obamacare. They're probably going to agree basically on spending, basically on rebuilding the military. They clearly agree on the Supreme Court choice that President Trump made. But there are some areas where there's some disagreement, and I think McCain's statements this past weekend at the Munich Security Conference are foreshadowing for where this is headed. It's pretty clear that McCain really wants an aggressive investigation on Capitol Hill. Right now, that's been limited to the House and Senate Intelligence Committees, although the FBI investigation has been underway for several months. So, it's clear. I think it's clear that McCain making those kind of statements is going to give some additional cover and perhaps courage to some other Republicans to distance themselves and raise questions about what the Trump administration is doing related to Russia. I mean, this New York Times report over the weekend that Trump is looking at a way to try to unwind the sanctions put against Russia. That is something that is not going to be supported on Capitol Hill. It's just not. And I'm talking about among Republicans. I think 10 or 15% of Republicans would support reducing sanctions against Russia. So I don't understand why Trump is focused at this time on issues that are potentially divisive in the Republican conference. He needs to keep the party united to fight these battles with Democrats if he's going to get some legislative accomplishments.
What did you think about the rally overall, and do you think, as I do, that we're going to see more of these from Trump? Because one of the criticisms, or I guess analysis, that I heard from Fox and others is that a president normally does these type of campaign rallies or these rallies when he's trying to sell something. I'm convinced that Trump is trying to sell himself, in that he's the one that he's proving, or he needs to prove to people that he's the change agent, and he constantly has to do that. That's why I think we're liable to see one of these once a month. What do you think?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, I think that's right. I think there were a few things to consider here. I think number one, he wanted to dominate the cable news networks and do it in a way where he could get his message directly to the people, and I think he did that. I mean, doing a late afternoon rally on a Saturday is a great time if you understand the sort of cable news cycle. There's not a lot of news. There's not a lot of original content being produced. Now, that said, I think he also really wanted to sort of get out of the bubble, and I think that's part of why he's going to Florida. He's gone to Florida the past 3 weekends. He wants to get out of D.C., and he also wanted to remind people that he can draw a big crowd, that he can fire people up, that he can remind people of the successes that he has had so far, although things have been a little rocky, certainly. He has had some successes, and so I think part of this, too, is that there was a psychological benefit to him personally, to be surrounded by supporters and to get that kind of positive reinforcement and positive feedback that he's not getting in Washington. I mean, all day, every day in Washington, he's under siege from every angle, from every White House reporter. There's Democrats talking about impeachment. He's been on 30 days and already talking about impeachment. Yeah. So I think, again, you're right. He doesn't want to sell himself. There's no question about that. And these rallies were a way to do that. I think from my standpoint, I don't know that strategically that they help very much. Because at the end of the day, he's got to improve his poll ratings to have the kind of political capital he's going to need to win over at least 8 Democrats in the Senate to get 60 votes to pass major legislation. And I just don't see him doing the kinds of things you have to do to put yourself in that kind of position. And that's what the State of the Union is going to be for on February 28th. Yeah,
going to be very interesting to watch. Matt, tell folks what you have coming up on your podcast and everywhere else that you're writing and everything else you got going on.
I'll try to keep that brief. We do have the morning email, Through Must Read Texas, that 4,000 Texans receive. It's a news brief every morning during the week that updates you on what's going on in Texas. It's a great email. I know you get it. You can sign up at mustreadtexas.com. Podcast, we just taped Susan Page, the Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today, who's been a reporter for 6 presidents covering the White House. So that should be up today or tomorrow morning. Of course, you mentioned the column in the Austin American Statesman on Sanctuary Cities. And then my regular column is in the Washington Times every Thursday. So a lot going on, but I appreciate the chance to be with you and your listeners. And have a great week.
All right, you too, Matt. Appreciate your time. Have a good one.
Take care.
That's Matt Mackowiak. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Mackowiak.